So if we're going to refine our theory, one of the things we'd want to figure out is, how did you get what you wanted from people? How did I get my milk? How did I get my Danish? And what are we saying? Well, I paid people. Okay. But that also is something that we take for granted. We take for granted that that yields order and not chaos. If you haven't been exposed to this, if you haven't been raised in it, it's really weird that allowing people to wander around and do their own thing without any planning, right? Without any centralized control, yields order and not chaos. So after the fall of the Iron Curtain and when the Eastern Europe was opening up, my father was, I don't know if it's the U.S. Department of Agriculture or who, but he's an economist, and he went to Bulgaria to consult with the Bulgarian government on fixing their economy. And they had a system of communication that was a centralized bureaucrat telling people what to grow and when to grow it and throwing them in jail if they didn't. And that was a system of communication, but it didn't work out very well. We could talk about that, particularly in a macroeconomics class, dig into why that's the case, although we'll get some answers regardless here. So, how is it possible that with no central planning, just letting people pay for things, we have enough food for the chickens, we have diesel fuel, we have milk in the refrigerator, right? Because turns out for much of the 20th century in the eastern half of Europe, you went to the shops and they didn't have what you wanted. So it was one of those areas where the system didn't work very well, and where they rationed based on a different, or communicated based on a different mechanism than willingness to pay here. Side note, and we will talk about this, is rationing based on willingness to pay is not the only mechanism. So again, it's amazing that we get order and not chaos. I encourage you to start looking around in the world and looking at the world through that lens. It becomes a magical place with beauty all over the place in the mundane. So now let's talk about, so that's right. I already gave you one version of economics. It's a study of social coordination or the lack thereof. I can give you all of economics in one point here. And then we can be done, right? You'll know all of economics. And this is true. You will know all of economics. So here's all of economics in one point. Social coordination occurs because of the interaction of individuals who are choosing according to their benefit and cost. All of economics in one point. Social coordination occurs because of the interaction of individuals who are choosing according to their costs and benefits. All of economics in one point. Now, I think we might want to dig in a little bit about that, right? Unpack this. And that's actually exactly what we're going to do for the rest of the term. Turns out, if you understand this truthfully, all economics classes are the same class. It's just taking this, all of economics in one point, and pointing it in various directions at different topics. So, social coordination occurs because of the, let's unpack that. Now again, if I had a larger board, we could do this a piece at a time. Let's unpack that. So we're going to start with all of economics in 4 points instead of, or European 4 points, 4 points instead of 1 point. So first one is a philosophic supposition. People choose. They don't stumble around randomly. They don't just bump into things. They choose. You could also say that people act purposively, with purpose, but that's not a word most of us use on a regular basis, so people choose. Now, this is a philosophic supposition. Some people out wandering around in the world don't believe that people have choice or that people choose. But this is really a foundational supposition. We could spend a lot of time talking about how we know that people choose, right? But let's if any of you have a deep and profound disagreement with this, I would love to have a discussion with you. But I suspect most of you are going to say, okay, fine, people choose. See, that's another way we can say what economics is. Economics is the study of social coordination, or we could say it's the study of human action and human choice. And so if there's no choice, then there's no room for us to study it. Next point. Only individuals choose. Now, why would we need to make that point? Well, part of it is we talk as though other entities choose, that governments choose, that groups choose, that social classes choose, that companies choose. But actually, that isn't what's happening. It's in many ways a misuse of language. They don't have agency. Groups don't have agency. Governments don't have agency. Individuals within governments choose. They cast votes. And those votes so they choose within a bureaucratic structure, and then the result of that aggregates up to something that we call this company choosing or the government choosing. But in fact, it's an emergent, the things that we talk about the government choosing are an emergent phenomenon. They emerge from the interaction of individuals who are choosing. So that's another, so we have, maybe I should make a list here, right? We have economics being the study of social coordination. It's a different skill set working on a board like that, with this camera. I have developed my skill set for people way at the back of the room to be able to see. So this is an adjustment for me. So study of social coordination or lack thereof, because the system doesn't always work. It's the study of human action and choice. And it's the study of emergent phenomena. Those are all different ways or different aspects of how we could define economics. You'll notice, by the way, nowhere in here is there something that says that economics is the study of money. And it's not that I've forgotten to put it up there. It shouldn't be up there. That's not what we as economists study. We may, as I talked about previously, right? It's a lot easier to measure things in money, but we shouldn't think that that's what we actually care about. That's not what we care about. This is what we are studying as economists. So, people choose. Only individuals choose. Point 3, individuals choose according to their cost and benefit. They don't choose according to somebody else's, they choose according to theirs. Put that in red because that is a very common thing that we tend to forget. If you want to know why textbooks are so expensive, it's because faculty choose according to their costs and benefits, not according to student costs and benefits. Now, some of student costs and benefits may be incorporated in their world because we care about students, or because an administration forces us to and yells at us until we cut back on our textbook expenses or the expense of the books we assign. And we can talk You probably will hear about why textbooks are so expensive, but the answer is because individuals choose according to their expected costs or their costs and benefits. I actually can put, I'm just going to make a refinement here, which is, this is math notation. It's going to be expected costs and benefits, because you actually don't know what the cost and the benefit is going to be until you take the action. And so we actually have to choose based on what we think the costs and benefits are going to be, but we never know for sure. So individuals choose according to their expected costs and benefits. And point 4, rules matter. So we've gone from all of economics in 1 point to all of economics in 4 points. So that's everything. That's everything we're going to cover this semester. That's everything you're ever going to cover in economics if you go on and get a PhD. So then why would you spend more time on it? Why are we going to spend more time on it? Well, it turns out applying these tools, these points, consistently and correctly is really hard. It requires discipline. It requires attention to detail. So that's all of economics in 4 points. We're building a theory here. I mean, basically, we are making some suppositions about causality. I've made causal claims, and we're going to be building a theory here, and that's what we're going to be doing going forward. Now, I've been, right? Theory. Now, we have causal theories that we walk around with all the time. And the question would be, how do we figure out whether our theory is right? One of the things that people oftentimes say in response to the how do you know that question is, let's go look at data. Let's go find some data. The issue, of course, is you have to know what data is important, what data is relevant. So now, obviously, we're not in a classroom, so this will be a little bit of a different example. But how would you know if somebody walking down the street wanted to go on a date with you, or sitting next to you at a coffee shop? How would you know that? A lot of times, well, I'd look at data, right? Well, okay, so well, what data would you look at? Well, would you look at how many teeth they have? Well, of course not. Would you look at how much hair they have? Well, no. Why not? Well, because how would you know that that data is irrelevant? Because you are operating with a theory. You're operating with a theory about romantic interest, and the number of teeth and the amount of hair that people have is information that you have concluded based on your theory of causality that you can ignore. Now, of course, that's information that might be relevant to whether you want to go on a date with them, but it's still information, right? And so figuring out which information is relevant, which information is important, is actually a difficult thing that requires some theory. And that's exactly another thing that we're going to be working on here, is both looking at theory, developing theory based on logic and deduction and induction here, and then once we have a theory, we can actually go look at data. We can develop testable implications of a theory or testable implications of two different theories, and then go look at data to see that will point us towards which of those theories may be more applicable. So that is all of economics in 4 points, all of economics in 1 point, some ideas of what economics is here. And that's where we're going to be going from here. So foundationally, probably a good idea for you to know these pieces, just because it will make your life a lot easier.